Welcome to Surviving Roots, the podcast where we journey through the complexities of our emotions together. I'm your host, Carrie Fund, and I'm here to guide you on a path of self-discovery, understanding, and healing. In each episode, we'll explore a range of emotions and experiences, from navigating grief and trauma to managing stress and anxiety. Through candid conversations, expert insights, and practical strategies, we'll uncover the tools you need to navigate life's emotional landscape with resilience and grace. So, let's embark on this transformative journey together. Take a deep breath. Allow yourself this time. This podcast is for you. Hi, everyone. I am so excited for today's guest. It's going to be a fun one. Rob Roseman is a man of many skills. He's a former Las Vegas poker pro, a memorable contestant of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, author of a 5-star rated book on Amazon, has interviewed over 100 guests on the Dad the Best I Can podcast. On top of all of this, he founded WTF Divorce, a platform with 138,000 followers built to help people learn, laugh, and feel less alone in divorce. Welcome to the show, Rob.
Thank you, Carrie. I'm going to bring you with me. I feel like that's like my Forrest Gump intro. I was like, who was that person?
I mean, honestly, and you have like the movie star name for it, Rob Roseman. Does it all.
I hear all that, and all I know is like 5 minutes ago, I was running the McDonald's to get my kids like chicken nuggets and ice cream so they can leave me alone for a few minutes.
Exactly. You know what? You need to print out this bio and tape it to all of their bedroom doors and be like, this is also your dad.
Yes, I do talk about some of those things with them because I'm like, you want to hear how your dad failed and embarrassed himself just like you just did on the baseball field? Like it all goes full circle.
Exactly. And you know what? That probably is why it makes you the best dad that you are, because you bring in your life lessons, you know?
Thank you.
Well, I want to dive right in because, like your bio, there is so much to talk about. First of all, divorce is not an easy thing to talk about for anyone. And can you share what inspired you to create your WTF Divorce platform and how your personal experiences, influence that inception?
Absolutely. And I started it on a whim, basically because I had no idea what I was doing after my 2020, right at the start of the pandemic divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And I got thrown into like, I got a new apartment and my kids are coming half the time. And I was like, I have no idea how to do this. What I learned though, I was always into podcasts, and I just recently got into social media, and I found all these accounts that were super helpful. A lot of guys even talking about, guys usually come into it from the dating angle. It's like, how do I get on dating apps? That's usually our first foray into divorce help. But then I'm learning about co-parenting, all these things. And I just thought, wow, there's so much good information out here. If I couldn't find it, other people couldn't. So maybe I could be like a connector. I would always like send, oh, listen to this podcast. Look at this meme. It's funny. So I thought there really wasn't anything like that for divorce that I found. So I thought, I'll spin up a podcast. I started an Instagram, and I said I'll give it 3 months, see if it takes off, and it kept growing and growing, and here we are 2 years later.
I mean, that's an amazing story. Imagine if you wouldn't have followed that hunch and someone else would have thought of it. But I mean, that's an amazing story. So that all started during the pandemic.
Yeah, so my first year is kind of a blur after divorce, especially with that going on.
Yeah.
It's just like I always tell people, like first year is just write it off. It's survive and advance. Like,
yeah,
you're going to have tension with your ex. You're going to not know what you're doing. You're going to go on terrible dates. You're going to stumble and fall. And then after that, I was like, yeah, I kind of have my feet grounded a little bit. And so a year later, I actually wanted to start it for divorced dads specifically.
mm-hmm.
Because I thought we're especially clueless and we do not have many, my friends are not divorced. We don't talk about it. But I quickly learned, and I was dating a girl at the time who's like, I want to learn all this. And most of the audience, probably 75 to 80% are women, because to your credit, you are the ones listening to podcasts, watching Instagram. So 95% of the, content that we share is for both sexes. So I thought, let's just put it out there, and it's been helping a lot of people, which is it's a rewarding thing on my end.
I can see your community is very dedicated, and you are definitely offering them so much support and advice and guidance. How did you come up with the name?
Oh, that's a good question. So that was like over a couple nights of drinks and whatnot. Like, you know what it is? It's like they're surviving divorce, thriving after divorce, divorce survival guide. And they're all just kind of, divorce has this kind of negative, kind of boring, kind of unhappy spin to it. And I'm like,
Mhm.
I feel all those things, but there's also this just like, is anybody seeing this? Like, can you see this text? And I was like, it's WTF is the way I'm always thinking. And I Googled the name and I was like, it was open. I was like, let's go for it. There's the name and the rest is history.
Oh my gosh, for everyone listening, listening to your inner voice and honestly just sort of fucking your fears and just going for it. If this isn't a great example, I don't know what is.
Yes,
Because look, look what you're doing.
I'm a big believer in just take action quickly. And I really think one of the biggest advantages of that is you might find out after 3 days of doing it, you don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Now you can cross it off the list. I mean, there were moments when I'm like, oh, this is a heavy topic. I'm kind of a lot farther along in my divorce. Do I want to be immersed in this? Which is
Hmm.
why I kind of take a lighter tone to it. But yeah, I'm all about like take action, fail fast, go on that date with that person. You'll find out real quick it's a no. Start that website, post on Facebook because nobody really cares like we think that they
Yeah.
care about it.
Yeah.
But it's it also gets it out of your head. That idea you had for 30 years to write that book. Just
Yeah.
just try writing it for a week. You might be like, I don't even want to write a book. Now you don't have to think about it.
Yeah, you just put it out into the universe and see what happens. It's interesting that you say this because when I started my toxic parenting and sort of healing platform a year and a half ago, it was really just to like write my book and get an agent, and it's sort of taken a life of its own. But sometimes I have those days that like, God, whether you're going through a divorce or healing, it's exhausting and like can I quit now? And then it's like, I feel like that's just my imposter syndrome, or that's just my inner critic. And then like eventually the universe will send me some emails where it's like, you helped me so much, or that reel made me think like this. And it's like, then you just keep going because it's like, wow, the reason you're doing this to begin with is to connect with others, to, I don't know, help feel better about your own life and guiding yourself down these paths and just helping others feel seen. So the process is very interesting.
Yeah, and what you said too, it's like, and especially, it's not necessarily the most lucrative business when you're starting out.
Yeah.
I was a professional poker player and a trader in Chicago, so I was actually making good money, but I was not helping anybody. I was like
Yeah.
a dog eat dog world. Now I'm in this position where I'm building something and I'm trying to build a business, but I have people literally 10 messages a day. Thank you so much. Or they
Yeah.
might not even comment or do anything. So you don't even see it, but deep down they're
Yeah.
like, wow, I didn't know anybody else was going through that. That really helped. And I heard somebody say, we all get caught up in views and downloads and all that. And I'm as guilty of it as anybody. But like, think of the one person that whose life you could change the whole trajectory of. And, that's your reason for doing it.
I love that you say that because honestly, when I first started this, it was like to get an agent and things like that. But now it actually comes back to like the priority has become my own healing and my own journey, because letting those ideas out, letting those thoughts out, sharing them with the world not only helps my own healing journey, but I always think back to like, wow, if one person could have inspired either of my parents. I was blessed with two toxic parents, terrible divorce, which I'm so happy to be speaking with you. But if one person could have inspired them to just change their self-awareness for a second and change their priorities while dealing with divorce and two young kids, I could have had a different life. Things could have been different. So I love that you said that. Honestly, if even like one person, one mom or one woman is inspired to not be a toxic parent, to own their healing and to be the best mom they can be, like I'm good. I'm
Totally.
good.
And think about it. And even if we are kind of a lost cause in some ways, maybe our wiring, which I don't agree with, but the
Yeah.
whole point of divorce is a lot of ways for your kids. It's for you, but
Yeah.
like, oh, it'd be nice to show them like what a healthy relationship looks like or what not a toxic relationship looks like. So we forget about the fact that like, this is a hard path to take, but like fruits of your reward, they're right there in front of you and your kids. So that's a
Yeah.
constant reminder.
Every great transformation requires hard work, and there really is a beautiful transformation waiting on the other side. You just gotta
you gotta climb
face it
through hell
all.
first.
You gotta climb through hell to get to the other side. But I mean, at the end of the day, what's the alternative? Staying
sit
in
in
the same
hell.
place.
You know
Yeah.
what I think that in some ways divorce is like it's worse before it gets better. I always say that. Like it's a lot easier unless your marriage is extremely toxic or abusive. That's obviously an exception. But
Mhm.
like in some ways, like if you're in that mediocre, below average marriage, you're never going to get really an opportunity to go change and grow. And once you rip the band-aid off in your divorce, it's going to hurt like
Yeah.
hell. But now you have this opportunity that I'm sure a lot of your 40, 50, 60-year-old friends are like, they all look at you a little bit jealous in some ways. They don't see the bad part, but you're living a life that maybe they always wanted to, but haven't had the opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, so speaking of, being a parent and having children and navigating this with your ex, first, like, how does your ex feel about your platform? Did you have a conversation or did you just pull
It
the
was,
trigger and go with it
I
and
did
deal with
just
the
go with,
aftermath later?
yeah, I did, right. Ask for forgiveness, not permission.
Yeah.
Because I also figured I'm like, oh, this will, not be a thing in a few months.
Yeah, sort of is.
But I did tell her at like probably a bus stop drop off or something. So you're probably gonna think this is, really embarrassing, but I'm doing this. And, I told her, and it is true. Like we do have a very good amicable relationship, which I
It's
know
amazing.
is very rare, but I speak highly of her when I do speak about it. But in general, I'm talking about divorce as a whole. I'm talking to other people. What are they doing? So I'm sure she doesn't love it, and she was probably surprised when we saw each other at a kids baseball game, and she's like, "So my friend sent me this meme that was hilarious, and I saw who it was from, and I was like, oh my God, like you're like this thing is big." So I imagine it's a little bit mortifying for her because she probably doesn't listen. Like, who would want to listen to your ex talk about
Yeah.
divorce? It sounds like torture.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, again, people aren't thinking about you as much as you are. You're making a difference. You're not trashing your ex, no matter how you feel about them. So
Well, I
this is
think
this
that's
is life.
beautiful. That's beautiful. That's several, beautiful and healthy examples. Which I think would play with your co-parenting because you do have three children you have to think about. And, how do you ensure that you shield them from the complexities and the negativity of the divorce process? Because I'll tell you one thing, I'm 46. My parents were divorced when I was 6, and their last lawsuit when they were in court was 4 years ago.
Hmm.
It was a terrible toxic journey, and both of them put my brother and I in the middle of it all. I mean, I have heard and seen things and been in courts that I just should never have experienced as a kid. So
Hmm.
I always, now as a parent, I always think to myself, like, what the hell? Like, where was their self-awareness in it all? Like, even like 20% self-awareness, because I don't even let like my kids watch, like, I don't know, a PG, like I protect what they watch on TV. They're not allowed on social media or YouTube. And I'm
Hmm.
like, my parents had me thrown in like courts lying and they're all this stuff. I'm
Right.
just like, how do you do it?
You're on reality TV. We're going
I
right to
mean,
Law and Order.
pretty
Yeah.
much, yeah.
I think I give them the benefit of the doubt in the fact that they really didn't know any better. I think the fact that we have like information and education and social media, like this
Yeah.
stuff out there. Like if I didn't have any of this, I'd like to think I'd have some ideas, but I think people just don't know any better. They probably learned from their parents, which was not healthy.
Yeah.
So you're breaking the chain, but like it's, yeah, it is incredible. Like when you see the generational trauma that, can be passed down and how hard it is to break free from it, especially when you can't control, your ex, like the other person going through it. So
Yeah. So
yeah,
did you guys like just sit down and say, okay, we're gonna do this? I mean, after the initial everything, I
right.
imagine, like we're gonna sit down this and like co-parent and do what's best for the kids. Like, did you have a game plan? Or did
Yeah, I
you?
mean, we had a like almost like surprising divorce in some ways. Like things were good enough, I'd say.
Yeah.
So when we did it, even I was like, are we really doing this? I think we always respected each other as friends and great parents. and it's going to be a rocky road, but like, we're in a rare situation where we have boundaries for sure. I don't always know what's going on there. She doesn't know what's going on here, but trust that the other
Trust.
person can handle it, which sometimes as a dad, I'm like, I don't know, this kid's got an ear infection at 3 a.m. This is above my pay grade. We got to call mommy, So I think dads in a lot of ways are, really thrown into it, but we have to keep that in mind. There's always tension will come up, especially when it comes to like financial stuff. Will
Mhm.
always be like, you never really hear from this person too, unless something's the matter. It's not just like, hey, what's going on? How you been? And if you do hear that, you're like, I don't really want to talk about it. But it's a big change because your conversations become a lot more business-like. And
Okay.
I think you really have to learn like these skills that I did not have when communicating with somebody that you don't really get along with, or let's say they come at you with all kinds of accusations. Your normal reaction and probably what your parents did, and maybe it's like to engage with it. No, you didn't, fighting, throw, and now it's just like, okay, thanks for letting me know, and like walking away and disengaging. And that's very hard for people to do, I think, unless you learn these skills, talk to a coach, read books and these things. So you almost have to, I always say it's like going back into kindergarten where you have to learn a lot of things that you did not learn growing up.
100%. I always refer to it as reparenting in my case because my parents were so busy fighting. They never taught me anything like the basic like life skills that you should have. And so I feel like as an adult now, like you can either, or even growing up, I could either choose to be like them or choose to be not like them. And I know that I didn't want to have a marriage like that. So I love that you mentioned boundaries and trust because honestly, I think no matter what you're going through in life, whether it's divorce or healing from a toxic upbringing, anything. I think boundaries and trust, it really comes down to that because it gives you not only trusting the other person, but trusting yourself. And then boundaries just give you the space that you need to, to heal and to figure shit out and to
Yeah.
see how you want to move forward. Um, yeah, that's really amazing.
Simple, not easy. That's the other thing.
Simple.
I'm really good at talking
Yeah.
about it. I'm good at reading about it, even with myself. But like as you get into dating and relationships, you get triggered. You could do all the healing you want, go start dating somebody for a few months. All these things come flying back to you. So
Yeah.
I saw a post yesterday. It was like how you can have boundaries and empathy and how they're not mutually exclusive and how you have to like, oh, I'm starting to people please here a little too much
Yeah.
and I'm getting resentful. This is probably a sign I should send that message that says, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Which,
Yeah.
that's the other thing. Boundaries when you're not used to having them, which I mean,
Yeah.
I'd have to imagine 90% of people that have been divorced have poor, weak boundaries that need
Yeah.
strengthened. They are very uncomfortable to lay down. Again, easy to talk about, hard to say, sorry, I can't take the kids tonight, because you want to take the kid, you're where you want to help out, but like you can lose yourself in this process so easily that it's the other thing after divorce. When you're married, you're kind of on the same team. I mean, if thing, might not be the most healthy thing, but when
Yeah.
you're divorced, you are like a free agent. Nobody's looking out for you except for you. Your
Yeah.
family probably doesn't get it. Your friends that are married, they don't get it. Your ex to their, which is fine. They're living their own life. So it's like, you got to figure this out because nobody else is. And unless you want to just constantly relive this, it's worth investing in.
Yeah, I mean, I think you mentioned a couple things that are so important about the triggers. Triggers. I've learned that they really are our teachers, and when we get triggered, we really need to just like take that moment to figure out, like, okay, this might be where I need to do some more healing, or I need to pay some, some more attention to. But the idea of it all, whether you're again going through a divorce or no matter what you're healing from, I should say, is that perfectionism is a lie to begin with. It doesn't belong in any kind of life journey. And just know that no matter what you're dealing with, whatever your journey is like mistakes are going to happen. But it's to have the self awareness to say, okay, I'm making a mistake, and just to do better and just let it be, because I think a lot of the times people get on this vicious cycle of going. They don't have boundaries. They don't take the space to like figure out if they want to do it better. They just keep doing it in the same way.
Mhm.
Um, and no one wins. So I think,
Yeah.
I don't know, dissolving perfectionism in any kind of like life journey with regards to healing, I think is a big thing, because then you sort of have more compassion, not only for others, but honestly, self-compassion, I think is very important in this, because we're all gonna fuck up and we're all gonna make mistakes,
Yeah.
but it's just the idea of being able to, you know what, I can do better. I will do better.
I think that's the hardest thing, having
Yeah.
self-compassion, because I wouldn't call myself a perfectionist by any means, but yeah, I want to do better. And if I
Yeah.
slip up, I know I shouldn't have yelled or I shouldn't have gone out when I didn't want to go out. So, and I think as any parent, some days too, like, well, this was a big breakthrough for me. You're just going to have some days that are going to suck. And if you can
Yeah.
like just get to 11 o'clock or whatever when the kids are finally down and just be like, that day was a disaster. I'm gonna go to sleep. It's gonna repeat tomorrow, but somehow when you sleep, which I
Yeah.
don't do a great job of either, but like it resets and I can't even remember what happened yesterday. So
Yeah.
it's like knowing that like this is terrible right now. I'll get through it. But like you said, it's like being gentle and forgiving on yourself is easier said than done, but it's so important because just all of the I call like decision fatigue that in
Oh, yeah.
divorce, the text, what do people do before texting and divorce? I'm like, how am I going to respond to this? Oh, this is a little too harsh. I don't want to respond right away. There's just like so many micro decisions that I don't know, think our brains are really equipped to handle it, but it's a lot these
I think
days.
in my life, since there was no really like cell phones, even when I was a young child, my mom talked all this shit to me and my brother. Then my brother and I repeated it to my father. My father heard everything my mother was saying. We were the
We're playing
communication
telephone.
device. Yes, we were the communication devices. Honestly, maybe they would have like gotten it together more if they had the threat of social media. Because it's like, oh my God, my kid could post this online about me.
Right.
There
Yeah,
were
they
no
did not.
witnesses then.
Yes, it's I mean, I always say I'm sure every parental generation says we had it
Yeah.
harder, but I think it is harder for us in a lot of ways because there's so much communication and everything. But we also have, resources like
Yeah.
yours, like when you're teaching people, your parents probably were not being taught these things from people like you.
No, not at all.
If
It's
they were, you
why
were 6 years old.
yeah, I wish they were being taught something. Um, so you come across, I can imagine so many different people and walks of life through this journey because 138,000 followers within your community that are learning and laughing and feeling less alone. What is something that was like hilarious or surprising, either like a confession or maybe something that you shared on WTF Divorce? Like, do you have a
Well,
standout one?
Well, one of them, and I remember because I was in Miami and we probably had like 5,000 followers, and I posted this one meme that I somehow conjured up. I saw funny. I usually see a funny video, and I'm like, oh, here's a funny line that would go with it, and it was when you're swiping on Bumble and you see your ex, and it was this little kid in band getting like totally shocked, and I was watching. I was in Miami. I remember I was like, oh, this thing got 5,000 views, 10,000 views. It got to 58 million views in like 48 hours, and I was like, it was fun and it was like a good little piece of entertainment, but it was like it hit that feeling you get, which everybody that's divorced has gone through. If you're on a dating app and you're coming across either your ex or somebody where it's like this mortifying feeling. So that was a highlight. But in general, what I see is like we all feel like we're the only ones going through it.
Yeah.
Nobody gets it. Dating is so hard. Being in a relationship is hard. Being alone is hard. It's like it's very hard. It's very easy to feel isolated. So that's like kind of the overall mission of what we're doing at WTF Divorce is like just being like a little like we're the bar, we're the glue where you can come and vent, and it's low stakes and just eavesdrop, listen to other people complaining. That might make you feel better.
I think that's amazing because at the end of the day, like we're not alone in any of this. Even in our parenting, forget healing and divorce, like even in our parenting, like we are all having the highs and the lows and we're all learning as we go. So yeah, I feel like people if they just would realize that they're not alone and there's so many choices out, whether it's connecting to platforms like yours and therapy and books, and there's so many ways to have the connection just to feel less alone when you're going through a journey like this. So what are your goals? What's next for WTF Divorce, and how are you going to continue to support and evolve your community?
Yeah, so that's something I think about every day because now it is a business, and a lot of what we do on the business side is like there's so many lawyers and coaches and therapists that are excellent that would love to be able to talk to, our audience. So a
Yeah.
lot of what we're doing is bringing on more professionals, interview them, maybe like somebody asked a question, could you answer it? We play it. All of a sudden, the professional gets to be seen. The person's like, oh, that solved my problem. I won't go run to my lawyer every time this happens. So, really just trying to make it more accessible to more people because it's like when I got into this and I decided let's make a business out of it, I'm like 50% of marriages get divorced.
Hmm.
I don't think that number's going down. I think it's probably going up because I think
Yeah.
people know a lot more. So, I mean, there's millions of people out there, and from what I gather, we're all kind of feeling the same way. We might be at different stages of it, but yeah, really just meta, make people feel less alone, help them through it, help them co-parent a little. You're not going to be 100% better. Your ex is not going to change, but I always try to remind myself, I'm like, all right, I handled that like 18% better than I might have last year when it would have been a 78 message back and forth. And now it's
Yeah.
just like, I got it. Now I can go tend to my kids and not be, and maybe I'm pissed off for an hour instead of 4 hours. So
Right.
always try and like, move the needle a little bit and then remind myself that like, it's not perfect, but we did a little better.
That's amazing. And speaking of just doing better, what, as a dad of three, divorce, what would you tell people that are listening, that are going through the same thing? What would you say is like your key characteristic or asset to just being the dad that could?
Yeah, it's very hard. I struggle with this a lot. Summer just hit us, and now it's like the kids need activity, so it can
Oh,
be
before
very
summer, because summer's just going to be effing chaos. Like,
chaos.
don't consider yourself during summertime. Go back to when there was school and a regular schedule.
Oh, I tell you, I
I
snuck
wouldn't
out.
do that to you.
Well, it could be like find that minute. I'll go get you guys McDonald's. That
Oh
20
yeah.
minutes in the car is kind of nice for me, I'll be honest. Like
Yeah.
find little pockets of time for you where you can unplug. I think connection with people is probably the most valuable thing you can do. I find as a guy that it's very hard to do. I'm in a new city. I've been here I got divorced 2 years into moving to the Atlanta area. Guys, it's a lot harder for guys to become friends. So I think we turn to dating, which can be, have its pros and cons, but I think you have to like go to the gym, do it just to be around people,
Yeah.
like put yourself out there a little more. And what sucks is like you think, if somebody dies, people are coming to you, what can I do for you? After like a quick condolence, everybody's on with their own life. So
Yeah.
you've got to be the one to initiate that. And the other thing I'll say is I think social media has plenty of problems and it can be very addicting, but if you find the right accounts and pages to follow and people, like it can give you this kind of like micro dose of connection where you can reach out to somebody, you can like a post, you can just feel less alone. So I always say, like, yeah, everybody should probably go see a therapist, but going to find a therapist that you like might take months and thousands of
Yeah.
dollars. So, like, start with small things, be gentle on yourself, try to be around people because it's very easy to isolate yourself. And yeah, just be gentle with yourself and find other people that have been through what you're going through because the people that are your friends, they mean well, but in a lot of ways they just don't get it. And that can sometimes spin you out even more. Like you feel like, am I crazy here? Like I feel dismissed. So
Yeah.
just find people that understand what you're going through.
And also follow WTF Divorce on Instagram. Listen, I'm not going through a divorce or anything like that, but I find comfort just looking through your platform just because I learned so much about just co-parenting, parenting and divorce and everything that probably, wasn't right or I deserved as a child, with two parents that battled in courts for several decades. So I find comfort in just all the things I'm learning from the expert guests and things like that and your own journey. So great community. There's so much information and connection on your platform. So bravo. And I honestly, I really appreciate your time today because I know school is out, summer's in, and you have 3 kids, and I'm sure they're done eating that McDonald's right now. So I'm really grateful for your time.
Oh, thank you, Carrie. This is a nice break. It's like my little therapy session. So I appreciate you for, putting this message out into the world, because one person listening can hear it and just feel like, oh, I'm not crazy. And that can really change somebody's life.
Ditto, Rob. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm grateful for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining this week's episode of Surviving Roots. Let's continue this conversation as a community. For more updates about the show, remember to subscribe on iTunes to leave a review. Also, there will be some special bonus footage from the show on Instagram @carrie.fund. I'll see you there.